Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis, an initiative of the UPSConline.com and Ambition IS. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 25th of December 2017. But before that, I would wish you all a Merry Christmas. So let's begin. The first article is on the editorial page of the Hindu, and it is the most important article in today's newspaper. The article is read as "Time for an Icebreaker. The intellectual partition of India and Pakistan does no benefit to either country." Now, this is an article on the India-Pakistan relation, and this is the opinion that the author has held, that there is an intellectual partition between India and Pakistan, which I shall be discussing how the author has justified that. And she says that this is not to the benefit of either country. Now, coming firstly to the context of this article, the context is that of an isolationist policy that India has adopted against Pakistan. After the terrorist attacks, especially the Uri attack, and which was reiterated by India through the surgical attacks, India has adopted a hard stand against Pakistan, and it has asserted that it is not going to interact with Pakistan. Not only that, India has taken a global position where it has asked on a number of international fora and platforms that Pakistan, being a country that sponsors terrorism, should be isolated. So the policy that India has followed towards Pakistan is that of isolation. This is important because this is new to India. This is something new to the foreign policy of India, which has not been, so explicitly done in the past. So that is what is important. Now, in this article, the author has, criticized this policy of isolationism. So that is the whole bent of the article, is a critique to this policy of isolationism. That apart, this is a very wholesome article. Rarely we find articles which is all encompassing on the topic. So this is one amongst those articles where it covers the entire topic of gamut of India-Pakistan relations in a summary form. So that way, this is a good and an important article. Now, the various issues that have been discussed by the author are, first and foremost, she talks of something called the intellectual partition. Here she says that there are no cultural linkages between India and Pakistan, despite the fact that both the countries have a common history, they have a common language, they have common idiom, they have common music, they have common religion. Basic things like on history itself, there are differences. Historians have interpreted history in India and Pakistan differently, and the history in Pakistan is largely focused upon the Western traders who came to India rather than focusing on the independence struggle. That history has been eliminated from Pakistan's textbooks, says the author. So this is one issue. Also, in the contemporary arena, the issue is that despite several commonalities in the contemporary world, cultural linkages between the two countries are at their lowest. For example, and these examples are relevant for your answers, quoting such examples shows your pulse towards the current affairs, and it adds something exceptional to your answers, which is always welcomed in the UPSC answers. For example, Abida Parveen and Ghulam Ali, these singers are not being allowed to hold concerts in India. Further, the Pakistani actors have been banned to perform in Indian films. The television network that was showing Pakistani serials, which were much loved in India, has been stopped. And also the sports events that are taking place between India and Pakistan, especially cricket, is largely very much limited. And not only that, even when it is happening in a very politically surcharged environment where the audience, the viewers of this the simple sports event consider losing and winning as a matter of national glory and national shame. So such issues have brought about a very explicit intellectual partition between these two countries. So this is what the author has brought about. Also, on matters of giving visa to each other, the visa regime has become very tight. Even visas for pilgrimage are being very restricted and monitored. So these kind of things are happening between the two countries, which is an unwelcome precedent, says the author. Now, the second issue between India and Pakistan definitely is of trade. Both the countries have already not had the best of trade relationships with each other, and these are being further worsened, especially in the backdrop of India in developing the Shah Bahar port in Iran. That is a major flip to the negative downturn of bilateral trade between India and Pakistan, because now India will categorically avoid Pakistan and will use the Chabahar port to reach Afghanistan. Also, another thing is that of an air cargo corridor to Afghanistan, which India has developed. So all of this has been an isolation of Pakistan, and this again the author says is not good for both the countries in the long run, as both the countries are spending dollars, billions of dollars to bypass each other. Or not only is this a loss for India, because India has spent billions of dollars to bypass Pakistan and reach Afghanistan, for Pakistan also it is losing trade, it is losing surcharge fee which it could have charged India for access to Afghanistan. So those are certain issues that are detrimental to both the countries. Another thing is that of ceasefire violations on the LOC. Now, the ceasefire was signed in the year 2003, and since then some degree of peace did come to the LOC, and villagers on the border areas were experiencing peace and they were settling down. However, past few years, especially from 2016, the year 2016, the author has given a figure, has a record of 51 deaths and 900 ceasefire violations. So these violations are now very much common on the LOC from both the sides, though you shouldn't take the stand that India is violating. Pakistan claims that India is also violating, and India says that Pakistan is violating. So definitely both countries are accusing the other. So there are a number of ceasefire violations. This is one issue in the India-Pakistan relations. Another issue, very, very important, is that of terrorism. Now, the discourse on terrorism between India and Pakistan is divided. The Mumbai trial in Rawalpindi is halted. The Lashkar-e-Taiba, operation commander Zakur Rahman Lakhvi is out on bail in Pakistan. And also the 2611 mastermind Hafiz Saeed is out of custody. He was released from custody last month itself, and now he plans to stand for elections in 2018. So this is a very surcharged environment, because terrorism is a major concern for India, and Pakistan is not taking a strict action, or it's not cracking down upon the terrorist heads who have caused terrorist activities in India. So that is one thing for India's concern. Also, Pakistan claims that India is sponsoring terrorist activities like Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP. Also, Pakistan, is raising alarms that India is financing terrorist activities in Balochistan. The Balochistan issue is important in India-Pakistan relations. Why? Because this is an issue that has been raised very recently with the Prime Minister of our country in his Independence Day speech. This was not something that was a very explicit part of India-Pakistan relations. This is something new to this government, like this policy isolationism is new, Balochistan issues no. So such new issues you must be well known with. So that is another issue, that terrorism, both the countries are accusing each other. Another topic is that of Kulbhushan Yadav. Now, the issue is that instead of mutual negotiation, the matter is largely gone out of control for both the countries, and now the matter has come onto the International Criminal Court of Justice under the UN. Now, you have to understand that both India and Pakistan have always been against third-party intervention in their bilateral issues. More so India. Pakistan still has been somehow opened to third-party intervention, but India has a strong stand that it is not going to accept third-party intervention. Now, in such a scenario, if India is adopting isolationist policy and is not negotiating with Pakistan, so automatically India has to go to a third body like that of the UN itself. So this is something not in the favor of India. That is what the author is trying to bring about. Also, there's an issue of political compulsions in both the countries. In both the countries, political mileage is drawn out of blaming the other country. So that is a reality in both these countries. And now Pakistan is going to have elections. So in that backdrop, relationship with India is definitely going to take a back seat, because the election manifestos and electoral chest thumping will be against India. So that is one issue. Another concern is that as soon as Pakistan's elections will get over, there will be elections in India. 2019 is the election year for India. So then again in India the similar practice will be prevalent. So in such a scenario there's a huge gap that is going to come between the relations of these two countries, and this is going to be worsened because of the isolationist tendencies and the policies of the government. So that is another issue that the author has brought about. So this is a summary of the major issues between India and Pakistan. Other issues definitely might be there outside the ambit of this article, but the most relevant ones have been included in this article. So that is why I said that this is a summary article. It's a good article. Now, beyond these issues, the author has come up with certain solutions, which is another advantage of this article is that it gives some good opinions, it gives some good solutions which can be verbatim used in the examination. First and foremost is that the author suggests that there is a need to stop the intellectual partition that is happening. Then the author suggests that India's opposition to third-party interventions is baseless because India's isolationist policy is inevitably forcing India to vocalize its stand on Pakistan on international fora like the UN, the Financial Action Task Force, the International Criminal Court, as well as the World Bank on the issue of the Indus Water Treaty. So if India is not going to negotiate with Pakistan, it will be compelled to go into these third party interventions. So that is another good suggestion that the author has made, that how negotiations will benefit India. Also on the Afghan issue, a major point that the author brings out is that both these countries are unaware to the fact that major players are entering the Afghan scenario like US, China, Russia. These major countries have interests in Afghanistan, and so if India and Pakistan are at loggerheads, there is a tendency that this area could be used as a political game of major players. So both these countries should be wary of this fact and they should prevent this. This is another good opinion that the author has brought about. Also, the author suggests that India is avoiding Pakistan in forums like the SAARC, which India did not attend in Pakistan, and is favoring other regional groupings like the BIMSTEC, the BBIN, the Indian Ocean Regional Association. So it is this precedence that India is setting, which is not the quality of a regional leader that India is aiming to become. And in such a scenario, other countries like especially China can build inroads into other traditional zones of influence of India like Nepal and Sri Lanka, Maldives, all these countries. And so India must take up the leadership role that the present times are demanding of it, and should avoid such narrow vision of isolating a particular country. This is one opinion that the author has given. Also, she says that growing distance between the people because of this intellectual partition is something that will become very, very difficult for the leaders to bridge in future, because the final solution will never be reached by a war. It will always be reached by negotiation only. So by the time that the government will adopt these negotiations, the peace process that has already happened to some extent shouldn't be taken back by many, many years. That is what the author is trying to say, that the bridge shouldn't be too late to build. That is the idea that the author has given. Another very good opinion that the author has given, that even without talks, simple engagements like on environment, on medical tourism, energy pipelines and electric grids, etc. is something that is in the interest of both these countries. Now, how can you use this is that suppose you have a question on the isolationist foreign policy of India, and you're supposed to analyze it. Definitely an opinion is expected out of you in such questions, and in such questions you should have, this is an appropriate opinion, because it's a balanced one, where the author suggests that even if you are not talking directly to the country, engagements on these other issues are something that will go in the long run in building peace between the countries. So that is a very good opinion, which I would suggest that you people should note down for your usage in UPSC mains answers. Coming to the next article, technology alone isn't the solution. This again is a very important article. To tackle air pollution, we also need to reimagine and rethink our use of urban space. Now, coming to the context of this article, the basic context is first and foremost the ever-rising pollution in the country. And the second most recent context is that of the cricket match that was held between India and Sri Lanka. A test match was held where players complained of having breathing problems. And this is the first time in the history of test match where players have complained of air pollution. This has brought a bad repute to India on the international stage, because cricket, and for that matter any sports activity, is not a national affair, it is an international affair. And when such international fora gets India's pollution comes on such international fora of sports for that matter, then this is something very much a question on the credibility of a country's claims to becoming a global power, and such things are really impacted. Also, another issue is that, see, India should rather aim at sponsoring global games in India. For that matter, Olympics. There are questions often that can India host an Olympics game. So such kind of case studies of why that the players were troubled, that sportsmen were troubled, are something that you can use in justifying your answers on this different kind of questions also. So that is the whole context. Now, coming to the background of this article, basically air pollution is a major problem in India, and it has worsened since 2016 Diwali in Delhi. After that, the author says that there was a confluence of conditions caused which led to terrifyingly high concentration of particulate matter and indeterminate gases. So that is the entire background, that since 2016 Diwali in Delhi, the issue of air pollution in Delhi has somehow assumed importance. It has become very much prominent. So what are the issues that are related to this? First and foremost issue is that of a multiple stakeholder approach, which the author suggests. The author says that it is not possible for any government to get over this problem of air pollution in a single term. So continuously blaming the government continuously the citizenry blaming the government for it is something that is unwelcome. Rather, a multiple stakeholder approach in this issue is required, which should include the government definitely, but it should include the businesses, it should include media, it should include the citizenry. So that is one issue that the author has brought about, that the blame game should not happen on air pollution. Then a good analysis that the author has brought about is something called urban air pollution. This is a good term that the author has given. I would rather call it a keyword which you can use in many of your answers. The definition that the author has given for it is that urban air pollution refers largely to the mixture of gases and small particles in lowest 100 or so meters, a result of human activity associated with vehicles, road dust, domestic cooking and heating, power plants and other industries nearby, and open burning of waste. So this is a good definition of urban air pollution which the author has given in this article. Then coming specifically to the case of Delhi, the author says that how there is a particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer ppm. The particulate matter concentration in Delhi is 22 times higher than the normal, which the WHO claimed is highly injurious for the lungs of an individual. So that is what the author has brought about. Further, she says that there are other polluting gases as well in the capital, that is of carbon monoxide, oxides of sulfur and nitrogen, ozone, and volatile compounds. So those are the volatile organic compounds. So these are certain issues that the author has brought about specifically in the case of Delhi. These are some factual aspects which you can note down if you want to. Then she talks about some issues. The issue is that there is a deficiency in monitoring air pollution infrastructure in India, which the author suggests should be a calibrated and spatially well represented network. However, this is not there in India. So this is a major problem with air pollution in India. Then the author brings about the concept of something called emission intensity, which is the emission per activity, the number of emissions per activity, how much is one activity emitting. In this context, the author brings about the crux of her article, where she says that the issue is that emission activity can be divided into two parts. If you want to control emission activity, you can have two solutions. One is technological and one is non-technological. Now, technical solution is something like, suppose cars are having a high emission intensity. So to reduce emission intensity, you can focus on making the engines much more efficient. You can make the technology so that it is less polluting. But the author says that this is not only a long-term plan, it is not possible in the near future. and also it is very expensive. So this has a lot of challenges to it, and she says that major policy focuses on this technical aspect, and the non-technical aspect of this is not being focused upon, which she brings about in her article. This non-technical aspect, this is the good part, is that this should include an urban planning which is aimed at decreasing driving and aimed at increasing walking and cycling activities and favoring public transport. So this is the urban planning model that the author has advocated to minimize emission intensity. So that is the entire crux of this article. Further, the author has suggested some policies that are needed. First and foremost, she suggests that there is a need for reimagining and rethinking of urban space. Next, she says that there needs to be a follow-up on the international models which are already there, but our politicians and our policymakers are ignoring them. So that is another idea that the author has suggested. Then she says that there is a need for taking back urban spaces, and this can be done by the citizenry themselves, and you need to overcome the lobbyists and the these car manufacturer lobbies and other industrialist lobbies. So overcoming that the citizens themselves need to fight for their urban spaces. Also, she says that there's an equal impact of air pollution on the rich and the poor, unlike water pollution. This is a good analysis that the author has drawn, that when other pollutions like water pollution is something that can be avoided by the rich, as they can afford ROs and filters, but air pollution is something that cannot be avoided, and it is a common issue for all the people, rich or poor alike. So that is a good analysis, and that is why the author is warranting an action from the civil society, the educated civil society and the empowered civil society. That is a good suggestion that the author has given. Then the author suggests that experiment on air pollution should be like a social experiment, and the people in these cities and urban spaces should be something like the living labs. So this is a good keyword and a key statement that the author has given. Now, importance of this article is first and foremost directly in air pollution. There, this article is obviously has a direct importance. The indirect importance is in the topics like smart cities. Also in topics like civil society, where you can say that how civil society has a major role to play, because non-technical aspects of environmental protection should be focused upon. There it is important. In urban planning, all of these topics will provide you an opportunity to use this article in your answers. So that is how this article is important. Now coming to the third article on the editorial page for today is flawed in the name of indecency. The government's advisory on telecast of condom advertisements is questionable on many counts. Now, the context is that the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has banned condom ads from a time period of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Now, this article otherwise is a specific one, but it has some issues which become relevant for you. So I've just discussed those issues in a summary kind of a form. First and foremost is that whenever such topics are raised, see, there are both, it's an open-ended debate. You can either praise the government for it, or you can even criticize the government. So for such kind of topics, you should have a knowledge, you should have points in both the favors, because an analysis is about knowing all the sides of a topic. All right, so first and foremost, the good part of this announcement of this decision by the government is that it is a good effort, because these ads are not altogether banned, rather only a time limit has been specified. Also, this will ensure that parents can keep a check on their children. This ban is aimed at protecting children from viewing such kind of ads which are tantalizing for the audiences. So that is what this is the term that the ministry has used. So that is one thing. Then the problems with this this decision are, firstly, that it is amounting to something called a ban on commercial speech. Like fundamental right to expression is a part of our constitution. So commercial speech is what has been banned. This is also becoming important because these bans are being imposed rather frequently now. So that is how you can use this article somewhere there also. Another point is that defining indecent and inappropriate is these two terms is something vaguely left. So this can be misused in future. Inappropriate and indecent is something very, very subjective. It is a matter of perception, and in some time in future, this can be misused. So that is one thing. Also, the author brings about a good point is that there is a thin line between art and obscenity. And so, when such kind of openly subjective clauses are there in laws, then largely there is a threat that art sometimes can be curbed. That is one thing. Also, the issue that the author has brought about is that the aim here is to protect children, and the children here have no age group. Rather, from 1 year to 17 years, all are considered as children as per this. But the issue is that India is now a modern country. It is not what it was many years back. Now the youth are much more sexually aware, and even the case of sexual activity amongst teenagers is something that the government is not ready to accept. So a question has been raised that is it time for the government to acknowledge the sexual activities amongst teenagers, and sexual knowledge of teenagers is something that is a question being raised in this article, which is a good question. Another thing is that the law that has been used to curb these advertisements, you should be aware of this law. That is the legal aspect of this article. It is the law of Cable Television Network Rules 1994, which bars ads which endangers the safety of children. So it is under this act that this law has been passed. The issue continues to be that sex in this country is considered as a taboo. So sex education again is a matter of question here, because a condom commercial is largely a form of sex education as well. But prohibiting it altogether from the viewership of children, and for that matter even citizens, in the time period of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. is something that can have adversarial impact also, because condom ads act as a means of educating the masses. So that might not happen. But here the justification is that not all condom ads have been banned, rather only the ones which are highly explicit in their advertisement programs and also somehow tantalizing, those are the ones which are banned, but rather not all condom ads have been banned. So that is another issue. Then another very good issue that the author has brought about is that this is the age of digital India. Today it is not difficult for people to record television programs, and even children do it. They record television programs and watch it during the day. So, or maybe a program which is telecasted after 10 o'clock can be recorded and watched during the day. So what is the government's regulation on that part? Another thing is that internet is something that has reached every single house, almost, at least in urban areas. So internet being so freely available to children, and pornography being free on the internet, is it really possible for the government to regulate children's viewership of condom ads, and for that matter sexually explicit material? So that is another issue that the author has brought about here. Now another aspect is that why only for that matter condom ads? There are many ads like cola ads which are a food which is against the well-being of children, and these ads are being run on televisions, and a cult is being created in the favor of colas, which is adversarial to the health of the children. So why shouldn't the ban be imposed on these advertisements? So that is another question. Lastly, the issue is that these condoms have a positive role on the society. Not only are they an integral part of controlling unwanted pregnancies, it is a means of controlling sexually transmitted diseases in India. So the society should not be so paranoid about these ads. So that is one issue that the author has raised. Now I have discussed this article because it can be of some utility to you in discussing the paternalistic role of the government, the societal norms in the country, then issues of teenage pregnancies, wherever there are scope of assessing some social changes, there this article becomes relevant. However, this is a controversial article and it has both its pros and cons. So I would advise that in such topics, you should be aware of both pros as well as cons. Its relevance is more towards interview, because in such, in interviews, students are largely expected to take a stand. So in that case, this can be of some relevance to you. Also, this can be used as an example. Even in ethics paper, there is a very, very important discussion on libertarianism, that should the individual be able to think himself, or should government make these rules? So their paternalistic rules and such kind of such kind of articles come handy as examples in these kind of topics. So that is why I have discussed it here. Now with this, I've finished today's discussion. I thank you all for watching. I hope you'll recommend it to your friends, and we shall be expecting a feedback from all of you all. So hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.